Live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. We are a happy go lucky group where we are talking about in this pre-show for Meet the Cast moments. Tonight's seat in the hot chair is Dustin, where we are going to be talking a movie where we are going to be crawling on our hands and knees, right? Or am I wrong?
How about? Well, I'm not crawling through anything. I've lived through probably coronavirus. I'm
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the movie that we are going to be talking about?
So this special episode here is about Alexandre Aja's 2019 Crawl, which is basically, it's been described as a home invasion movie, but the home invaders are alligators. So she goes to check on her dad in Florida. This girl and her dad live in Florida, and she's attending, I think, what is it? It's one of the Florida State universities. And she gets a call from her sister. It's like, hey, there's a hurricane down by the old house, and I can't get a hold of our dad. So she goes down to check on him, and she finds him injured in the crawl space of their childhood home, being stalked by what we assume to be hungry alligators, but it's actually somewhat worse. And so the movie is there.
Are they alligators or crocodiles?
They are
Alligators.
They are
Yeah.
alligators.
Alligators are definitely a Florida thing.
Oh yeah,
They are. Well, there is an American crocodile too. Like that is a thing.
that'd be amazing if they swarmed that much for crocodiles.
Well, also crocodiles are extraordinarily rare in Florida and very limited.
I have heard rumors of Florida is a place where a lot of invasive species can really thrive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I have heard rumors that stuff like Nile crocodiles have been appearing down there. Those are just rumors.
Because
we live in
idiots.
we live in like the post Tiger King world, so I mean any exotic animals get in any place for any reason, it's like I'm not shocked anymore.
Well, and Dustin, you can probably back me up on this. I know the spectacled caiman is long since established in Florida, and I think there's 2 or 3 other caimans. So crocodile's not out of the, especially because people are idiots. And I know there are people that want Nile crocodiles just because they're idiots.
The last time I heard of this was a couple of years ago, and I had imagined the wild population wouldn't be very big. I'd imagine like under worst case scenario, probably like under 100, which isn't a lot, but that's still, they could live down there.
But before we go on, we need to establish alligators are the ones with their snouts rounded off, and then crocodiles, they have pointier snouts.
Well, plus crocodiles have fringes on their hind legs, don't they?
I'm not so sure about that one as a common differentiator. Crocodiles have triangular snouts, and alligators have blunted snouts, like we already said. And with alligators, the top row of their teeth sticks out of their mouth, while the bottom row, when their mouth is closed, you can't see the bottom row of their teeth. Crocodiles have kind of a staggered pattern. Well, most crocodiles have a staggered pattern where you can see bottom and top teeth. And their teeth are usually pointier as well. So plus most crocodiles are, there are only, 2 or 3 different species of alligator, whereas crocodiles are much more abundant in terms of how many species there are and how much variety there is. So if you see something in the US, it's almost certainly an alligator. Whereas if you're in, any other part of the world, likely a crocodile.
Okay.
So And crocodiles tend to be larger as well.
Yeah. Well, so this film here, you mentioned home invasion. Well, it's partially that, partially animal exploitation is kind of the term I use for any kind of killer animal movie.
Oh, real quick,
And then
we do want to say we're going to
go ahead.
spoil the crap out of Crawl for you. So I
Of
want
course.
everybody to see this movie
But,
because I want more stuff like this. So
yeah,
go
I
see
do
it.
too because well, I do too. I do too want to see more movies like this because it was partially, like you said, home invasion, animal exploitation, as well as disaster movie because of the hurricane. Well, I think what makes this movie special, well, how do you pronounce his name? Alexander, is it Aja?
I believe I've heard it pronounced Aja.
Aja, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't sure. I know he's a French director,
I
but
could be
he's the one
wrong
who did.
I don't hear it spoken out loud very much.
Me either. I've always said Aja. Just I don't know. It doesn't matter. But so he's a French director who did High Tension. He did Piranha 3D. He did the first. He did the first Hills Have Eyes remake.
He did Elijah Wood's
So he's got. Yes, and so yeah, he's got a good modern horror pedigree, and especially like with Piranha 3D, which I absolutely love. And that's a great, more cheese-tastic animal exploitation film. But this film, like, honestly, I really really love this film just because I felt like it really worked very strong on the script level because there was a great level of it's all the things that you're taught in screenwriting that constitute great screenwriting, which is there's a lot of tension, there's a ticking clock, there's clear objectives, clear characterization, there's lots of not like major plot twists, but just more like action beats, I guess you could say, of like points of reversal where their fortunes reverse. And I really loved the main character, really loved her drive and her competency while also not being invincible because both she and her dad get pretty fucked up during the whole movie. And it really has, if you want like a good modern example of how to do a really good, tight, compact script, that for a modern movie, like this is a great example.
Yes, very fast paced. And the events are kept because of the setting. It's basically two people alone in a crawl space for most of the film. And, that keeps it from, I almost want to say being too complicated.
Yeah. Well, it's nice and straightforward. It's not shallow by any means. Cause I think that the characterizations of Haley and her dad are, for this kind of movie, they're pretty rich. Yeah, I think the characterizations are pretty rich.
Almost a character.
And kind of, yeah, but it's like the characterizations are really rich, and it's with minimal exposition, which again, that's another positive I want to throw this movie's way in terms of the script, because when it's too often you have movies that will over rely on narration, or they'll do really clumsy exposition, or they show characters by being told about them rather than seeing them in action. And here we get a very clear character very early on, and we see just that right amount of like she does the usual horror film things as far as going to the house when she shouldn't in the storm, but we also completely understand why this character would do that, because she is she's an ass kicker like her dad, and she's incredibly stubborn like her dad, and so, and she's not going to let something like that stop her, which is both admirable and like I was like, I'm not going out in there, but then again it's like, if your family member's in trouble, then yeah, you will go out there. And again, she proved herself very, very capable but again, not invincible, because those are pretty. You can be a really capable, well-equipped person and still not be in a good means, not have the means to escape your situation. And so they hit that balance just right. And it's a great example, I think, for modern screenwriters of how you can have pretty rich characterizations without having to make your film like an art house movie, and still working within a genre, within genre fare, still making it good for people that like, creature features and like killer animal movies. Like it satisfies all those things, but you just get so much more relative to what you normally get.
Agreed. Like it offers a lot of depth on the characters. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I was just kind of agreeing. But though, just to throw it out there, we're 10 minutes in and no one's done their first impressions yet.
Huh. Oh, I've never been on a pre-show before, so I wasn't sure if we follow the same format. But my first impression of this, and trying to get to see it and everything, ooh, it was kind of an ordeal actually, because it was announced and it was like, oh man, there's a new like alligator movie, because reptile movies, especially good reptile movies, are pretty hard to come by. And so I was very hyped to go see this at a theater. But a lot of different things last summer kept kind of conspiring to prevent me from doing that. Like I kept being busy, or I kept missing the show times, or by the time the dust had settled, it's like, okay, let's start looking at, and it's not in the theater anymore. Damn it.
Well, and also they changed the release date, didn't they? That probably made it confusing.
I wasn't sure if they had even done that. Like my last summer was a total mess for me. There was another.
I know the feeling, because my relationship was starting to go to hell. So I wasn't able to do a lot of the stuff I wanted to do either. So
and anyway, so also last summer I went to my very first horror convention. I went to Flashback Weekend in Chicago, almost kind of on like a whim. So somebody who goes every year was like, "Yeah, we can take you." And then they like didn't contact me. So it was like, hey, are we going? It's like, oh, we forgot about you. We're already down here. So I took the bus down there, intending to just stay, for a few hours and then like take the bus back home that night. And it turned into this entire ridiculous, very expensive adventure. But while I was down there, Sam Raimi was there. And
cool.
Sam Raimi produced this, and I had no idea. I knew about Crawl. I was excited for Crawl. I really wanted to see Crawl. I had no idea he was involved, and I just kind of like ran into him. And it's like, oh, you did Crawl? It's like, oh, I want to ask you stuff about Crawl, but I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what to say.
Which now, funny you mentioned that actually. One of the things that I noticed about this film, and I mean this as a compliment, now a lot of
it had the Raimi nastiness.
Yeah, but more specifically, a lot of smaller, either indie horror films, or in this case, like smaller budgeted mainstream films. They have often emulated the structure and the filmmaking chutzpah, shall we say, of the original Evil Dead, in the sense that was a movie that felt a lot bigger than it really was, and felt a lot more intense than its budget would have realistically allowed it to be.
Oh yeah.
And so in this case, like, you have a similar situation where, it's just two people instead of a group of people, but they're trapped in a particular place, this dilapidated, cabin, or in this case, house, and they're facing these insurmountable odds that are beyond their ability to control, whether it's the supernatural or whether it's the elements. And you've got, antagonistic creatures getting at them. You've got the severing of a hand or arm. You've got which that's more Evil Dead too, but still, you've got that. You've got just some interesting parallels with Evil Dead as a story. If you just supplanted the supernatural elements with the natural disaster elements, but but again, it's not anywhere near as overt as other films that have come along that more explicitly rip off that structure or just how it was made.
Those are a lot of parallels I hadn't really thought of, but
Now,
anyway,
if they made Crawl too.
Continuing on with the rest of that story that we
Oh yeah.
we're trying to tell. So anyway, I went to go get Bruce Campbell's autograph. Like, I was kind of rushed into the room. Like, I was walking by this room and there was a sign like Bruce Campbell, time whatever. And the guy at the door, they're about to stop letting people in the door. And so the guy at the door was like, "Hey, do you want to see Bruce Campbell?" Yeah. It's like, "All right, get in here." And they kind of like shove me in there. It's like, "All right, you'll be his last autograph. It's $50." It's like, okay, you have 10 seconds to decide. Okay. All right, here, pick a photo. Okay. And I'm kind of like pushed in front of Bruce Campbell. It's like, "Hey, I wish I could think of something smart to say." "That's never a problem for me, kid. Here's your thing." Pretty much. My name is Bruce.
Do you want to have
a guy in real life that kind of unpleasant, disappointing guy. And anyway,
do you want your photo taken with Bruce Campbell? Gee whiz, do you have to ask?
And anyway, often in the corner of the room with a very big line is Sam Raimi with this 8-foot tall cardboard poster for Crawl. And I was like, I didn't know he did that. And so anyway, a lot of stuff happens, and I end up staying for the next day, which ends with a Q&A of Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi. They seem to always appear as a pair, so
that's like if you do the Dragon Ball Z fusion of the two of them, they become
just Sam Raimi, but like sleek with the gray sides on his hair.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was like a general Q&A, and like you could ask them anything, and I kept trying to ask Sam Raimi. It's like, do you plan to be involved with more projects like Crawl? Like, what was working on that like? Or something to that effect. I had some intelligent question planned, despite not having seen the movie, because I wanted to learn about it. And I didn't get called because I was kind of stuck in the back. I don't think I was supposed to be in there because it was for like special ticket holders only. But I was sort of walking by, and the guy watching the door was like, "Hey, do you want to come into the Q&A?" Okay. I just kept getting stuff.
Nice.
Like there was a handler for Tony Todd, and he's like, "Hey, you want a picture of Tony Todd?" Well, I saw the list. It's like $50, right? Having been totally out of money at this point. And he was like, "Oh no, Tony Todd just getting off the elevator. Here, he'll do it. He's cool." And it's like, "Oh, wow, Tony Todd is cool." And he like did it for me.
Yeah, he seems like he'd be really cool.
I had both a lot of disasters and a lot of lucky breaks. It was a very strange trip. But anyway, so I'm walking out of the Q&A, and it's like, dang, I just wanted to ask stuff about Crawl. And Sam Raimi walks right in front of me and hears me say that, and he like stops and looks at me and smiles. I've only seen Sam Raimi like 2 or 3 times, so I didn't recognize him. And like his handlers were like, "Hey, we got to go to the airport," and he just kind of like waved and smiled, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's you! Make more movies like Crawl!" I like shouted at him as he.
That's funny.
Embarrassing thing of all time. Like I got it. It was like, I feel sick. It's so empty and sick inside. But anyway,
momentarily brushed the face of greatness. Well, this film here, Crawl, like
with Lance Henriksen.
Oh, cool!
Never surprised.
He seems like he'd be cool. Anyway, so this film, Crawl, you have to love the title because it's got several meanings. You've got the crawl as in the crawl space. You've got crawl as in that's what the alligators do. And it's and also 3, crawling is, as a word, the connotation is of like either a creature or an insect or something that
There is actually another horror movie called Crawl, and from all I can tell from the cover is somebody gets their legs like removed somehow, and they have to like crawl for help.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Which,
Well, I mean that sounds
Crawl,
pretty.
that would pop up.
That sounds pretty gruesome. It sounds, but good.
It looked like an indie thing.
Well, I mean, and in a way, I mean this whole like metaphorically speaking, with the fact that the water is rising and they're not really able to walk in the traditional sense, they have to swim or, in some cases crawl around as much as they can. Yeah. Well, I really, really loved, speaking of which, I love the going through the sewer pipe and you see all of the plants and the debris that make it look and feel very swamp-like, and it just is kind of that whole like nature reclaiming.
It's like a drain pipe because
Yeah.
at the edge of a lake, so it opens into a lake where the alligators normally live. And sort of a big reveal later in the movie is the reason that the alligators are so aggressive towards them in this space is that the alligators actually have a nest through a hole in the wall in like this little alcove. So I thought this movie was pretty great in terms of like biological accuracy of like, why would they be so aggressive?
Yeah. Which it makes total sense because generally speaking in the wild, carnivorous animals, if they're not hungry and if you're not interfering with their young or their territory in some way, then for the most part, they'll leave you alone. Like they don't necessarily want to just pick a fight just for the hell of it, because that would be a huge risk to themselves, and
the risk of injury is there for every predator, and predators predators can't afford to really push it.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, there's a scene where she stabs one of the alligators in the face with a screwdriver. Like, that animal, I don't think that animal would have probably gone near her again after that. Like,
nah, it would have learned the hard way.
Not really repelled, Like, kind of shakes his head and then keeps coming after it. It's like, no, that animal is going outside.
Well, unless the animal's kind of stupid, because you do have those, even within, reptiles or other kinds of mammals or whatever, you do have somewhat of a intelligence bell curve there. But that does bring me to one of my favorite things about the film, which we were talking about off air, but it was the fact that this film really got something right that a lot of these killer animal films do not get right, partially because of what Jaws established, which is Jaws features a particularly intelligent great white shark, and like it
works, how to take it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's this unnaturally smart fish. Now, granted, again, there's probably at least that one outlier on the bell curve too,
I know how this works.
Yeah, there's got to be at least one a rare kind of shark, but then it's just with every killer animal movie since then, even up to and including like Jurassic Park, which I mean that's kind of its own. I put the dinosaur films in their own category, but point is that partially because of that, you got this whole impression that these lower brain fish or reptilian brained animals are smarter than they really are in terms of like deliberation. Now, obviously they got instinct and they're hunters and all that stuff, but they cannot deliberate in the way that like a higher order animal can. And in this film, the alligators behave like lower brained but still ferocious animals, and they're not abnormally intelligent.
They're not solving problems. Like, they're aggressive. Like, they're attacking people who get too close to them. Like, they're clearly trying to feed in some scenes. On humans, like on purpose, but they're not calculating how to flip boats or anything.
Yeah, well, and they're not like seeking people out either, and that's the other thing. Is like,
well, hey guys.
Oh, hello.
I popped in here right quick.
Right.
I think that, Dane, to piggyback off what you're saying, I think that that's why a lot of people who are biologists and zoologists hate movies like this movie and like Jaws, because it kind of goes against the animal behavior. You know, the whole idea like, oh, it tasted human blood, and now
I'm
it's
sure a lot
like.
of them find it kind of funny. I actually have at some point for my own podcast, one of the guests I have lined up is Dr. Graham Webb. He's a very high-level crocodile scientist in Australia. He wrote a book called Numenwari, which became the movie Dark Age, and he knows a lot about this. And so in some of I talked to him a little bit on ResearchGate about these kinds of movies, and he was happy to come and talk with me about this stuff, like when my show actually starts. And
have you guys already done this?
I haven't done it yet, but I've had like a couple like quick, back and forth. Like
I would love to pop in with him on this, because that like if I hadn't become like a historian librarian type person, I would have totally gone into marine biology and stuff like that. That sounds interesting. I want to pop into that. So
he pointed out something that I hadn't thought of before. He said that oftentimes reptiles are depicted with much sharper teeth than they'd usually have. So he's like, you ever notice that they seem to sharpen their teeth? And then, yeah, because it's a little detail that you just wouldn't notice unless pointed out. And in this movie, they kind of did sharpen the teeth on the alligators a bit.
Well, it's the same thing with the Meg. With the Meg and with Jaws and stuff, they make the predator, quote unquote, much more aggressive than they actually are. Like, I hate to say it, but you talk about, oh, it's a simple animal. It's a simple animal. Well, eventually it loses interest. It's not going to go hunt in the same spot for weeks on end. Like, I tasted blood 6 weeks ago. It must still be here. No, they're not going to linger in the same spot. They're going to eventually move on. After even after a couple of hours.
Unless it's the crocodile and Peter Pan.
Oh,
that's true. That's what I liked about Quest for Fire with those lions. Was the saber-tooth tigers rather. Sorry. But I think they were lions that were kind of given those false teeth to make them look like saber-tooth tigers. But anyway,
the Ghost of Darkness.
Yeah, but what I liked about that was that they did chase our caveman heroes up the tree, but then eventually, they lost interest because they're like, it's like, well, these creatures, they're not doing anything. You want to grab something else? Okay, because that's again, it's like animals like that. They are not deliberating, and they're not going to go against their basic survival instinct. And if that particular meal is not really making itself available, they'll move on. They're not going to track you down because of like vengeance or whatever. And that's of course that's the dumb thing about like
there
Jaws
are
the Revenge.
Outliers. I mean, there are outliers. Like in I'm thinking about two separate incidents. Like one, the Jersey City shark attacks, where the shark lingered for weeks on end and attacked people. That's one outlier. And the other outlier, you've heard about orca attacks. You've heard about, I'm already blanking on the other one.
There's one species of fish.
There's darkness, actually. Yeah.
There's one species of fish called the bluefish that's known to just attack, just for no reason, just attack. Very few do, though. And of course, in a captive setting, I worked for a long time in a fish store, and there are fishes that will, in a captive setting, the aggression level can go way up. But it's partly because they don't know where their meal's coming from,
Jake, what did you think of this movie?
Me?
Yeah.
I had seen this movie actually about 3 months ago, and my first impression of it was I was very annoyed by these stupid actions that the main characters did. I was very put off by that. But I also appreciated that it was a very well-made movie. I really wanted to see it again, especially because of the insistence of several people that it's not stupid, it's just stubborn.
I didn't say it was. I didn't say it was necessarily smart to go into the storm or whatever. But I was saying more that screenwriting wise, it makes perfect sense why this character, given what we know about her and about her father, it makes perfect sense why these people would do that.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And
it's not what I would do, but I mean.
Watching the movie again, I will say, from top to bottom, I do think it's a very well crafted movie. It does. The acting is solid, and it does a really good job keeping you on the edge of your seat. It does do a good job with the tension and the suspense and all that stuff. And I do appreciate the portrayal of the Gators as being, not too crazy offbeat. It's not exactly a film with me as the target audience, but I definitely appreciate it.
As the only person here with any real experience with gators.
I've seen them.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I kind of was born and raised in Louisiana, but as the only person here with gator experience, the gators were a bit fucking much. I'm sorry, but in the middle of a fucking hurricane, those gators are looking for goddamn
They would be
shelter.
looking for shelter, yeah.
Yeah, and they would not be sitting here looking like, I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't mean to talk like that. But like, they would be doing all this extra stuff. They really wouldn't. And but as far as the acting is concerned, they were very huge too. Yeah, you're right. That was
like, 15? They were like 15 footers?
Yeah, they were kind of big.
That's kind of the upper limit for I think the records are like 15 for females and 19 for males.
And also because the story takes place like, it's not like we're out in the swamps. The story kind of takes place like down in like the middle of Florida, but kind of with a you know what I mean? Like,
well, their house is on the shore of a lake, which I'd assume would be attached to habitat. And plus, it's the reveal later on too that the alligators are kind of sheltering inside the house because they have a nest like built into one of the walls because there's a connection to the lake.
But even a nest built into the wall, they wouldn't be growing that damn big.
Well, it explicitly said that there was an alligator farm like right down the road. So that's where I assumed that they were coming from. That's why there were so many of them. Plus,
I caught that on this watch too. Yeah.
But to have built a nest underneath the house, you would think that someone was seen. You know what I mean? Like, come on, there were some plot holes.
Well, I wouldn't. Well, hold on. So
my big plot hole, personally, was they have this kind of design in the bricks of the crawl space.
Yeah.
Where like, didn't he have a tool belt? Like, if they had a hammer, they could have knocked out like 3 or 4 bricks and probably crawled out of the hole. I mean, that clobbered me.
Well, their adrenaline was not pumping enough to get them to move around sufficiently to do that. Plus the noise, I'm sure, would have attracted the one gator that they knew was there, let alone the multiples.
But remember, the dad was blocked by those pipes. He was like, they can't get through the pipes. I'm sorry. What, motherfucker? Seriously. Dave, I'm not no shade or nothing, but I've been in emergency situations where you're like, okay, you gotta think on your feet and stuff. And it's like, you're like, what do I have around me? Oh, yes, I have this. And it'd be like, I'm gonna lay here and pass the fuck out.
Yeah.
And wait for someone to come get me. Like, that never occurred.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to defend because again, I wouldn't be there in the first place. But the one thing that if we're talking about a couple of generally speaking, I praise the fact that again the alligators did behave like animals and not malicious monsters. I like that
they weren't like Nosferatu.
Yeah, they weren't like that. And also
yes, humans. We must kill them.
No. They kind of were like Nosferatu because remember he was like, if you're not making no noise, you're not making no movements, you're fine. The looters. That was my big thing of like, hold the hell up. So remember the dad said, if you're not doing this, you're not doing that, they're fine. You're fine. The looters were across the goddamn street. How did the gators that were in the house?
Well,
remember the gators that were in the house left the house to go bother the people across the street. So at that point, okay, Mama, her and her daddy could have gotten out.
Yeah.
How do you know it? How do you know it was how do you know it was the alligators from the house specifically?
Because they were wandering around the goddamn house when the damn gators had left the house.
It's kind of suggested that there are more alligators that there are alligators inside and outside the house.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point is that this place is overrun with alligators.
We see what 3 alligators in the house, and then outside we saw what 6 or 7.
2 alligators.
Yeah, but remember the one dude was sitting in the store, just kind of standing there watching, like, what's going on, dude? Yeah. He's screaming. He wasn't making no movement.
Yeah, and even the first one who was killed, the girl in the boat, she was in the boat. Yeah, so it wasn't like that was something that I noticed this time.
They got to get a bigger boat.
And
the goddamn gator ate a part of the fucking boat.
And that was one thing that I noticed.
That was a good scare moment, though. I appreciate that.
Fuck y'all. My accent's coming back.
I was under the assumption there were 2 alligators.
My accent's coming back.
I do want to say this was one thing where I do think Kim has a point. I do think Kim has a point here. This was one thing that I did notice this time around. I think I noticed it the first time around, and that was when they wade out into the storm and Barry Pepper says, "Don't splash, they won't bother you." I was very specifically thinking, well, what the hell happened with the looters? To me, that was a big plot hole in the script, I think. I do.
The part about the looters, it reminded me of a movie I watched not long after I watched Crawl for the first time, which I'm not going to go back to my first viewing of Crawl. But I watched a movie called Bait, which was a tsunami and a bunch of people who were caught in like a store with a bunch of sharks. And I swear the scene with the looters reminded me the most of Bait, where you have these alligators who are like, "Ooh, I don't care what these things are. I know what they are. Let's go get them right now." Zeroing in on them and taking them
target.
Movement.
Well, I generally praise the structure. I praise the characterizations and all that. I will say this movie did 2 of my least favorite medical cliches, and these are ones that I've noticed maybe you guys have too. So cliche number 1 is the cutting off the blood flow to the limb makes it good enough to get through the moment kind of thing, which I've seen that so many times, and it'll get you like a little bit of the way, but it's such that it's not a wise thing to do, because you can the loss of blood to the limb will make it more likely that you'll have to probably amputate it, or that something bad will happen.
The loss of blood only stops the bleeding so that you don't die in the moment. Right. That's all it does.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry,
but it's not going to make it such that you can use the arm again, or that it won't hurt like hell and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it does hurt when he does it, of course, but it's like, and again, I am sure with all that adrenaline pumping that it probably helps with your pain.
I think like Brandon, like I can speak for her, but like Brandon and I, we both have gone through extensive like first aid training and stuff like that with our jobs. And I was I was watching that scene. I was like, not just for the dad, but for her too. I was like, bitch, you got bit by a gator. Like the fucking sheer force of that bite should have been enough to touch your damn bone.
Like, I
and
think
she's like, let me get a string from my fucking pants and tie off the bleed. I was like, no.
I mean, there aren't a lot of animals with a stronger bite than an alligator. Yes. And one of them is the Tyrannosaurus Rex. So the times they got bitten, they should have they probably would have lost those limbs. And
I mean,
the dad did lose his arm, which I mean,
one
dad did
thing
he shouldn't have been walking around after that arm was taken off. The blood loss from an arm loss like that alone He'd have been fainting within moments of
major arteries. Yeah. I've seen people get bit by snapping turtles, and they were like, "I'm sorry, I'm gonna go to sleep right now."
So
the second medical cliche that this did that I don't like, and Lost did this all the time. This is what made me think of it. So, the other medical cliche is the person needs to have mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Yes.
But they're not responding right away, and so they do the chest pound of life.
Yeah.
You know, which Lost, as much as I loved that show, it had the one moment with Jack trying to resuscitate Charlie, and he did the epic chest bang several times, and all of a sudden somehow that worked, and it was and it was so over the top in that show, and they did it here. It wasn't as over the top as in Lost, but still it was like, if you're not careful, you might break their ribs or something. You know, it's like
Dane, I was watching a movie, I think on Sunday actually, that made me think about what you were talking about. Don't judge me. San Andreas.
With the Rock, yeah.
At the end, when a certain, I'm not going to sit there and spoil for anyone who's listening, a certain character drowned. Basically, the bitch fucking drowned. She fucking drowned. And here comes the Rock, chest compression, and breathing through her mouth. And he's like, okay, I'm going to stop for a minute. This bitch has been down for a while. And then the other person's crying, like, no, don't let her die. So he's like, no, live. And I'm like,
live, damn you. And it's like, yes.
I'm like, I have been through multiple over the last, since I was 20 years old. I have had multiple CPR trainings and certifications because you have to get renewed every so often. I'm like, that's not how that works. I recently went through another CPR training, and the guy was from our county's EMS team, and he was like, yeah, so have you been watching Grey's Anatomy? Have you been watching this show? Yeah. He even said to us, and I quote, don't fucking do that. And I was like, oh, you cursing. Okay. Does the county manager know you cursing us like that? He's like, I don't give a shit. Don't fucking do that. You know, he's like, what you see on TV, it doesn't work like that. And he went through, I was like, okay, I already knew that, but I could have done without you cursing at me though.
Well, but hey, it made you listen right up, didn't it?
Well, I was already listening, but there was a couple people that was in my class who was like, "Oh my god, is he allowed to curse at us like that?" I'm like, "Yes, bitch, he can curse at you like
that." I can't take language. Oh my god!
I mean, that's how some people were acting in the class. Like, well, I saw a show on Discovery Channel. He's like, I'm going to use shut the fuck up right now.
Whoa.
I like this dude. Like he was the best CPR teacher I've ever had. And he was like, yeah, everything you've ever seen on TV and movies, disregard that shit right now.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God. So when I watched like San Andreas and then this fucking movie that same night, I was like, yeah, no, that's not how that shit goes. You don't, and if you are down that long, you don't just wake up, Mom, Dad.
Yeah.
Can we take a moment to shout? Can we take a moment to shout out like how good the effects are in this movie? Because even though there's CGI,
relative to the budget,
even though there's CGI, they're completely convincing. Like these are probably the best movie alligators I've ever seen.
Okay, maybe. Yes.
Well, I mean, relative to their budget, absolutely. It's you know, it now that there's
there are a few scenes where you can kind of see the seams, but for the most part, these alligators are really convincing. Like I think their eyes glow a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Which my
really about my only gripe.
Well, my beef, there's one
from the one in Alligator.
What?
Well, there's one beef that there's one beef I have with the CGI is when she is it's such a small little effect and they probably just threw it in at the last minute, but it was when she's trying to get up through the floorboards and all the spiders and bugs and stuff get on her. Like those things look like they were drawn on. Like I don't
like
know.
from
Like,
Resident Evil 4,
yeah, it just
I
it
don't
didn't look
think I
that
noticed
that
that
part
the
didn't
first-
look good. Now, obviously, most of their budget clearly went towards the alligators and towards the compositing to create the hurricane. Like, and that all looked really good.
No, it did.
But
I actually watched some of the behind. In fact, I watched all of the behind the scenes on Crawl, and they actually built the house separately and brought in like tanks of water to fill these like spaces that they wanted
yeah,
to create, for the different. And they went into long explanations of how many different pieces of the house that they created, because after the bay window was crashed into, they had to create it again later
yeah.
on. So,
Well, it's like in Titanic, where they have to that most of because obviously there's a lot of in the second half it's all about the Titanic sinking. There's a lot of different rooms in the ship. There's a lot of different stages of sinking, different levels of the ship, and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's no surprise why they with this film it's one in the house, but they have to do it in different stages of sinking and with tons of debris and all this crap flying around. And so, I mean, I imagine that for the continuity person, that was probably pretty tough to keep a track of.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, for me, the biggest
but
complaint
still,
about
it's like,
I'm sorry, Dave,
Go ahead.
go on.
Go on.
well, it was such that I'm sure it was tough to keep track of, and you would have to have created like a pretty sophisticated tank system to keep that water flowing in and keep it, at the right height and all that stuff.
Well, of course, in order to mimic like the idea of the Gulf or the ocean coming into the area, for me, the biggest complaints were, well, obviously the behavior of the gators, and then the other complaint was just the overall story and the actions of the fucking characters. Like, okay,
You thought they
first of all,
stupid actions too.
yes, I'm so pissed. I'm so pissed because, again, born in Louisiana. I was born in central Louisiana. Let me just say this right quick, detour. Central fucking Louisiana. We were about 2.5 to 3 hours away from New Orleans. But when a fucking hurricane came through, we knew in central Louisiana, okay, so start going panic buying, start hoarding your shit, start boarding up windows and shit, start getting stuff together, because you don't know how far inland this hurricane's going to come. Yeah. Oh, wait, it's a category 3? Yeah, it's going to come pretty far inland, so y'all might want to get some shit. Oh, category fucking 5? Start praying. That's all I gotta say. Yeah. And I'm like, wait. I was like, hold on. Wait a minute. He decides to go down to a house that's near the coast to board some windows and do other unnecessary shit for a house that may not even be standing. Fuck the windows. The foundation's gonna be gone. I'm gonna go down there, and I'm not gonna tell none of my children, neither of my daughters, where I'm going. I'm just gonna go on down there. I'm not gonna answer my phone.
I got kind of the impression he had a bit of a death wish.
He
could tell he was sort of depressed and stuff.
Let's keep in mind that he and his family weren't really talking at the time, and he's still trying to preserve what a little of their old lives is there. That's why he was
he was talking to the oldest daughter, because the younger daughter, she was not talking to him, right? But the oldest daughter was talking to him. She's like, I haven't talked to Dad since yesterday. I'm like, wait, bitch, hold on. So he's talking to you, and he was like,
but that's not too unusual. Where one
of
the kids, one of the what?
Where do you live again?
Well, I was saying it's not unusual for a parent to not be talking to one kid, or vice versa, still be talking to the other kid, like the kid that's more.
I agree. I have 3 brothers and 3 step siblings. So I agree with you. But Dane, Sugar Pie, where do you live again?
North Carolina.
Exactly. That motherfucker lived in Florida.
I know.
I'm gonna repeat myself. Cat 5 hurricane. Anyone
I know.
who lives in the Gulf or lives near shore knows what Cat 5 means. I'm done. I'm out for the fact Cat 5 hurricane. I'm already out the story right there.
Well,
I'm gonna go board some windows.
Yeah.
Well, I'm with you I'm with you in terms of.
Isn't that a line from Yu Yu Hakusho? You might as well stop a cannonball with paper.
Yeah.
This also does bring up another good point. She, the girl, didn't know that a Cat 5 was bearing down on her location. That's
I'm gonna swim cracker.
We were talking about that as we were watching.
Well, she clearly had her head on the competition and nothing else. But the little thing I have to say with the why was he still there in the house and all that. Which, if you're in any way normally you should be long gone if Category 5's there. But I will say there are a lot of people who, even during Hurricane Katrina, they would not move. They would not leave. They stuck it out. They wrote it out.
But Katrina was nowhere near a Cat 5 hitting.
Yeah, but my point is that some people are
there
just
are dumb
wired that
people.
way.
Like they made a reference on the radio early in the movie that people were like shooting at hurricanes.
In real life, she would have been.
That did happen in real life too, unfortunately.
In real life,
Brandon did make a good point with the daughter. Like, couldn't she have just sent the police to his house? And also, he made another good point. Brandon made it because my husband is so smart. I love you guys, but my husband's smart. But he said, "How did the police know he was at the other house?" Because remember, when she first broke through the police blockade, it was to go to her dad's condo. And then she gets to the condo, finds the fucking dog, and was like, "Oh, Dad must be at the old house." And
they were probably doing a sweep of the area,
but the old house was some distance away from the condo. Remember that?
Yeah. Well, so I imagine they were doing an area sweep, and that's probably how they came across. I don't think they were specifically looking for them.
I don't think they knew they were there. It seemed like they were just kind of checking houses. It's like, okay, is anybody here? All right, moving on.
Yeah, but how big was the goddamn area? They came to the house asking, "Hey, what's her fucking name again? Haley, whatever. Haley, are you here?" I was like, how did y'all know she was there?
She had that huge ass vehicle parked out front,
which is underwater, by the way.
Partly by this point.
I tell you, really, when you look at a Category 5 hurricane, for somebody who's also lived in Florida, to me, it's not as believable that this guy decided on the day the hurricane makes landfall, that's when he's going to start repairing the house and boarding it up. None of the windows were boarded up. I have not lived that close to one, but I have been in the midst of hurricane preparations when Isabel decided to go like in a swath straight through where I was. I actually got to see the eye of a hurricane, which is a rare thing. It wasn't quite what happened in the movie, but still. And this guy was a construction guy. He knew his stuff. To me, it's not plausible. He just decided, maybe now would be the good time to start my preparation.
I'm gonna argue the opposite. So, I mean, like I said before, there are people who do not advisable things during emergency situations. we know that. So again, I'm not defending the.
We're seeing plenty of that right now.
No, that's what I'm.
Go God.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not defending the action, like those actions per se. We're saying people do that. There are a lot of people who, because they have other things on their mind, or they're just damn stubborn, they won't leave when they should.
Stupidity.
Well,
turned into an
David's
interesting
like,
fight.
David's like, this is fucking gold for my show right now. We got, people just debating. We got a girl on here.
Well, my point is that I could buy that there would be someone that would disregard safety precautions to
People with foolhardy exist. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, totally. Like everywhere.
So
just look at New York City right now.
Well, I don't.
It doesn't mean you gotta like them.
I'm just saying that's not a script. That's not a script problem. That's just a stubborn character observation. Like that's an aspect of character. It's not a script problem.
Well, Dane, I'll tell you something right now. I've got a friend whose apartment in the Upper West Side of New York City overlooks Central Park. Yeah. And at the height at social distancing and the height of infection rates in New York City, we're saying how like I can look at my apartment right now and see people in Central Park not social distancing, no masks.
Yeah.
They're like, I got my fucking telescope, I'm watching this shit, and they're arguing with cops and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not fucking surprised.
Yeah, well, you see, that's exactly what I mean, and like that's just people being lazy, and like with this whole thing, clearly Barry Pepper and his daughter were both in quite a lot of emotional distress, and people will do a lot of ill-advised things during those circumstances. So again, I'm not defending the wisdom of the character's actions. I'm defending the script for. I think it's totally believable why those characters would do those things. It's not just them being dumb for the sake of plot convenience. I really think that it fits the themes of the movie as a whole.
It makes sense that these people would be down there.
Exactly. That's all I'm trying to say.
And I agree with that, honestly. Although you've made a lot of points that I honestly hadn't thought of, because when I watch this, I'm excited for crocodilian mayhem.
Well, there was plenty
the motivations of the humans are not on my mind for the most part.
I mean that's another reason why I like the movie, is because you do get plenty of crocodilian mayhem, and you get plenty of
you get stuff to chew on too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like you get the genre thrills, but you also get, I think, pretty rich characterization in a compact way that isn't spelled out to you, but it's very clear. It's like, I think that's good writing, and also you satisfy the genre fans. So, that's a really good, that's really good genre writing, I think.
And I hadn't really thought about the idea that y'all were mentioning of it being a home invasion film, but it is kind of interesting seeing them blend a home invasion with the creature feature. That's an interesting. You don't see that very often.
Planned a disaster movie. And let's not forget, metaphorically speaking, that water is always a kind of, well, in literature and in films, it's often a kind of baptismal symbol. And you also had not only them submerged in water for almost all of it, but the fact that the water was rising, and the house, the symbol of the old life that they once had that really wasn't what it appeared to be, which often happens when you grow up. You realize, oh wait, the past wasn't what I thought it was, but that symbol, the symbol of what was, it gets crumbled, it gets taken down because, well, it wasn't real, and it's not what matters. What matters is the people. That's home, and she says that. And even that they don't it's there, but even that I've seen that done so much more heavy-handed, and I feel like the way she said that was actually pretty in the moment and pretty natural. Like, they didn't make a huge deal of it, but it made sense why she would say that in that moment. But it's like I think that was, again, that's a good thematic writing without having to spell it out too much.
It's also interesting in this one that there's one of the very rare horror themed movie where going up the stairs is a good idea.
Oh yeah. although going down to the basement is still problematic,
Right.
And but again, I think I have to also praise the cinematography and the lighting for how good they made the crawl space look, and the fact that there's a lot of good light and shadow in which the alligators can hide, and they can be there, but you can't fully make them out.
You could really get a good look at what the creatures look like,
Well, once they step into the light, yeah, but you don't see too much or too little of them. You see just the right amount, and they also it was a menacing environment that also didn't look too out of the ordinary relative to what would really be there.
I think it plays on everyone's fear of like the evil basement and because all of us can remember being a kid and being afraid of the basement or being like in the Home Alone, being afraid of the deep dark basement or the attic. I mean, I had an intense fear of our attic, and every time my mom would open the attic, I'm like, I'm not going up there, and she's like, well, I don't want you to go there. It's too dangerous. And she made it seem like it was this deep, dark, evil place, and to the point where I was crying.
Plus, there was this moment
in the attic. Girl, I'm just going to get Christmas decorations.
Plus, there was this moment where she went into a different part of the basement, and she realized that there were more eggs of the alligator. Wasn't there? Like more?
Yeah, that was where they had their nest.
Yeah.
I need to throw in there as far as like a plot hole about that you said. Well, I think that a couple of different explanations. One, that pipe might have been connected to the alligator farm, and that's how they were able to make that happen so quickly. Two, there was that debris came in during the hurricane, and the mama alligator was like, "Oh, this is a good spot to lay my eggs." Although then again, some of those eggs they did hatch. So
if this was, I was going to say, if this was during the hurricane, there's no way that was a maybe a previous hurricane though.
Yeah, well, it would have taken a while for them to hatch, I guess. But still, it's like I think that I don't think it's too out of the ordinary for them to have found a little alcove, because again, nature or life finds a way.
Exactly. Actually, I will say
that little space looked pretty organic to me. I totally bought that.
Yeah, I did too.
That there is a way that you can justify the alligators not having been noticed and having had that for a long period. Because this guy didn't think to do any repairs or work on the house until the day of the hurricane. This tells me that he probably had spent at least weeks, maybe, because I'm sure this hurricane at least had a week, if not more, of warning. So he probably spent weeks, maybe even months, not even near that house, and then probably went to the house very last minute to do repairs and say, maybe I should shore this up from the hurricane.
Babe. He had a dog in a condo by itself that had not been walked yet. So I'm going to assume that he left that morning for that damn house. So, and not like he's been gone for 2 days straight and then, the gators attacked him and no shit like that. Oh, no, he'd only been gone for a few hours. Otherwise, that dog would have been wild the hell out.
Yeah.
Like, I got to
I'm just saying that he hadn't been to the original house. He had been in the condo with the dog, but he hadn't visited that original house probably for months. So the alligators had plenty of time to set up shop without not realizing that they were there, because he then suddenly got it in his head that day. Oh, maybe now I should.
Oh yeah, I should probably like.
Well, and keep in mind that the house, it didn't even have an offer. Even though he said it did, it didn't have an offer on it. So it's probably in need of some kind of fortification. And at that point in his characterization, like, he's still bemoaning the life that he thought that they had as a family. And so it's like his last ditch effort to try and preserve some aspect of this thing, albeit at a bad time. But again, when people aren't thinking clearly, they'll do stuff like that.
Well, again, let's pretend like there's a gator. Was there like popular? It's a gator rescue nearby, or
there was a gator farm.
Okay,
Carol Baskin.
So a gator farm. Carol Baskin of gators. Yes, but let's just so there was a gator, rescue or whatever nearby. So at some point they didn't say, "Oh, BT Dubs, a couple of our gators got out, you know. So
They're not
Well,
going
I
to.
don't
think
think
they
they
were.
that publicly.
You know, because there were eggs underneath this man's goddamn house.
I think they were wild.
They could very well have been.
Exactly, they had to have been. There's no way.
Well,
you know, I don't know what
they
they
wouldn't have-
mentioned.
They wouldn't have had signage up at the lake shore that be careful of gators if they thought there was no chance that there were gators in the lake, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, gators are everywhere in Florida.
Yeah, especially not Florida.
Not these gators, though.
Well, fuck, even up here in Virginia, there's gators. But
Yeah.
like, I don't understand why they didn't
No, that's debatable.
Shut the fuck up, yes, there are. I'm sorry, there's no. I don't understand why they even mentioned the idea of a gator preserve or rescue being nearby. Because I'm like,
it was an alligator. It was an alligator farm. I think it was just to establish alligators in the area, like for the audience.
And the fact that there were a lot of
sign, though.
Well, but no, it's like the fact that there had to be a lot of them all in concentration because otherwise. I mean, yeah, there are gators around, but it's like that many all in one place. Like you would have to have
again.
I think we're kind of overthinking it.
Yeah,
okay,
I think we are too.
Okay, no. Listen, Linda. Listen, Linda. They laid eggs on this motherfucker's house. So I'm sorry, but if I'm the Carol fucking Baskin of an alligator reserve, whatever like that, I'm gonna notice a few of my fucking gators gone missing every day and then lay goddamn eggs somewhere else.
Well, assuming that there are those alligators, they could have been wild alligators for all we know.
They could have been the ones at the nuclear power plant
over
across the way.
The alligator farm.
Well, it's because they needed a lot of alligators all in one place, so that way you wouldn't be like, "Oh, well, where did all these alligators
I
come
think
from?"
the alligator farm was just a sign there to tell the audience, "Hey, there are alligators." Like, I don't think anything from the farm. I don't think anything came from the farm.
I think they came from the nuclear power plant across the
way.
Sure, why not?
Maybe we are overthinking this, but God fucking did. You know, fuck this movie.
Well, that's a rather odd criteria to just throw out the whole movie.
I'm sorry.
I mean, that's
the actress. I love her. I have been following her career since her very first fucking role. I love her. Kaya Scodelario, I love her. I have been following her since Skins. Since Skins, when it first aired in the UK in 2007. But you know what? Fuck this movie. I'm sorry.
Okay then.
Well, you are entitled to your incorrect opinion.
Oh, wow.
But
like this, fuck this movie. I'm sorry, I can't even.
So her first credited role was in Duncan Jones' Moon. I didn't realize that.
Oh,
that's kind of cool.
Was she like Sam Rockwell's daughter or something?
She played Eve. That might have been his daughter.
Yeah, I only saw that movie once, and I did see it on the big screen, but that was it was good. That was a long time ago, but I do remember it. But yeah, I think the thing I really appreciated I think very good structure of the script and the really good amount of tension and good amount of I think it's a good one for screenwriters, especially in the horror genre, to keep an eye on, just because of how much you can learn about good screenwriting technique from this. And I think it's now there is one little. This is just for me. It's not necessarily a problem with the film, but it's just more something that I observe that some movies do, which is the helicopter comes down, they're rescued, and then credits. It's like I would have liked to see more of a conclusion, like did they survive, did they like I get a little miffed when some
their
movies
way of being coy.
I did like they're going straight into "see you later, alligator." That was just
that was a great choice.
very good.
That was
very good choice.
Awesome. I enjoyed that.
Very good choice of song, but it's just more so that, like, with a lot of movies, like I would like to see more of a conclusion rather than just stopping. Like even with something like the Green Inferno, like you do like it doesn't end with her being picked up. It's like you see more of a formal conclusion to the story, and it's like okay, it's the difference between it's the difference between
Brandon has not seen that yet.
I haven't seen it either.
Here's the thing: it's the difference between concluding and stopping. It's like concluding is you finish, you get like a whole ending, and then stopping is more just like okay, yeah, and it's not like this. That's just more a personal thing with me. Like this still, I think it worked regardless of that. It's just more my preference would have been I would have liked a little bit more of an epilogue.
I would have liked to have seen Betty White feeding the alligators and setting up at the end.
That would have been cool.
One thing I want to mention is in the extras on the Blu-ray for this, there is an alternate opening that they did like as a stop motion comic. Did anybody else get to see that? I think you did, Dave, right?
Which one?
The alternate opening, the comic.
Yeah.
That's a neat idea. I wish I could have gotten the Blu-ray in time, but I had to do a trial of Epix Now to make it happen.
Basically, what happens is, first of all, it's pretty understandable why they wouldn't let him shoot it, because are you kidding me? So it opens with a family like escaping, the flood. So their car gets kind of waterlogged, and the dad gets out to like help somebody push their car along so that they can keep driving. They both get killed by alligators. The mom and like the two kids, they climb on top of the car and they see a helicopter and they're like, we're saved. And the water starts rising as alligators circle them. And then there's a like backlit, you see shadows of alligators chomping on things and screams and just flying blood. And like the little girl's doll, like covered in blood, sinks. And it's like, he just killed those kids. There's no way he could have done this. Like, because there's like a little introduction. It's like, I wanted to do this introduction. It's like, well, I wonder why they wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah,
it's like the scene in the movie Mimic where it was back in the 90s. They were like, we can't show children being killed.
I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, well, I'm just
actually.
Shut the fuck up.
I have it, but I haven't gotten to watch it yet.
Rather young children are viciously murdered by the roach insect hybrid.
Oof.
You don't see it, but you get to hear it. And I was like, oh god damn, oh shit.
Well, that can be good.
And they were like, we can't show it because it's children. And I'm like, yeah.
Oh,
well, I mean, that can work too. I mean, that can work too, where you don't see it, you can hear it, and that does it. I mean, that's a good scene in and of itself. I like the way that they, and another reason why I like the script of this thing, they don't do the typical horror movie cliche of you have to start with a killing to jolt the audience to get them interested. Like they're able to start where you're supposed to start usually with a script, which is you start on establishing flow of life. Who is this character? What does he or she do? Character is as character does, and
you're an apex predator.
Yeah, which I like that. I think that's a great line because it shows exactly how they think. And it shows the kind of lives that she's been brought into and, why she is able to hold her own for so long in this situation, but also, why she has self-doubts that she has to overcome. And, it's like, I think that's a very telling phrase. So, I mean, I appreciate that this movie starts without having to fall prey to that particular cliche.
And also, regarding the scripting and the cast and everything, I was just looking on IMDb some comments of like complaining about all the side characters just get killed off and no one even pays attention to it. And I'm like, but really,
the looters,
really and truly,
and the police officers.
Right.
You feel a little bit of a pang for her sister's ex-boyfriend, a little bit. But like basically, this is a movie about the father and the daughter. It is about them, and everyone else really is extra.
Well, so but they keep the focus though.
They're all red shirts.
Well, but they keep the focus on what it should be, which is a father-daughter story, rather than making it about, okay, how many people can we kill in how many gruesome ways. Which if you're going for like a cheese-tastic kind of movie, then sure, just make it as insane as you want, make it entertaining. But like in here, it's like I hate when movies that are trying to be taken seriously, when they fill the movie with all kinds of unneeded supporting characters, and it's like, just keep the focus on the main characters and just do that. And that's what this movie did really well. And again, another reason why I would say screenwriting students, check it out.
And I also just want to say really quick on the question of offing kids, I will have a lot to say on that scene in Alligator.
Oh my lord. Traumatized. Forever.
I keep thinking of the scene from Feast where they say, I don't know if any of y'all seen Feast, but they do little title cards for each, and one of them's like, they wouldn't kill a kid, would they?
The odds of survival.
On that note, I'm gonna walk away because I did not watch Alligator or whatever the other one that keeps talking about.
We haven't gotten to it yet.
We'll probably be ending very shortly because of...
I don't know how much more there is to say about this movie. I mean, you know my position on it. Screenwriting students, check it out. Horror fans, check
Dave,
it out.
I'm sorry to come in and just be all loud and crazy, but I have opinions.
That's what we want. We want people that are passionate about whatever it is. I'm just, again, when you've seen as many movies as I have, especially modern movies that fall victim to the same cliches of how movies start and how they often over rely on clumsy exposition or narration, it's like, hey, look at that. This is a movie that does it the way that movies used to do it.
Well, Dave, this is your show. I'm sorry. I do apologize.
I don't care. I mean,
you were fine. I don't know why.
Yeah, no need to apologize. I mean,
why are we even calling attention to?
Well, better that we have passion than we just are very just kind of emotionless, and
And besides, this movie was awesome, so
I mean,
it doesn't really matter.
If movies do anything like they should, it should be that they arouse strong emotions within us, whether positive or negative. The worst thing a movie can do is to be boring,
like Artifacts.
Yeah, exactly. or like the American Mummy.
I didn't mind at all.
Thank you, Dave.
All right.
I just wish we could have gotten through first impressions. That's all.
Yeah, let's make sure that when we.
I'm sorry that I was on the phone with my mom, so I couldn't have done first impressions because I was on the phone with her and yelling at her about social distancing and shit like that. So.
Your parents have trouble with that too.
Well, my mother got diagnosed with breast cancer the week that lockdown started here in Virginia. And her, my stepdad, and my older brother are not social distancing. In fact, while I was on the phone with her, my older dumbass brother was like, Charles, talking to my stepdad, I need you to run me to the store right quick. Because he's got 2 cars and a motorcycle in my parents' driveway that's non-functional. And so he and my stepdad to run to the store. And I was like, are they wearing the masks that we gave y'all yesterday? No. Are you? And I cussed my mother out. I did. I cussed her ass out. And so, I was yelling at my mother. While y'all were doing the show initially. So I'm sorry that I could not be on the show, the first 30 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Because I was too busy cursing my mother out.
Well, I mean, out of all the things, I mean, that's kind of important stuff, especially after breast cancer. I mean, your immune system's going to be pretty fragile.
She's already had the mastectomy. She's already had one of her boobs cut the fuck off in the last month since, whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're already pretty fragile on a whole bunch of levels in that case.
And going through cancer treatments, and I'm cussing her out like, what is, I'm literally yelling at her. I'm like, what is wrong with y'all? We gave you masks the other day, like actual masks. Why are you not wearing them? Well, they're grown-ups. I can't, your brother's over 50. I can't tell him what to do. I'm like, bitch, he's living in your house.
And you kind of can.
Well, especially if he's still living in your house, it's like,
and
you know, if you don't want to grow up, just say so.
And spending the money at the store that's actually her and my stepdad's money. So yeah, I called my own mother a bitch, and I was like, bitch, she's living in your house. I'm not a good daughter. I'm really not.
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, you know.
In the same day, I had threatened Brandon with snitching him to our family doctor. I had threatened my mother with going to a magistrate and getting emergency custody over her, and didn't take her own health seriously. So yeah, I trust the fuck out. Someone, please tell Brandon, Septum Sin, to take his health seriously. Could we, Jake? Please, someone.
Take your health seriously.
There you go.
Yeah, before I kill everyone.
I have such problems with like my family that I just find this entire thing like kind of quaint. It's like, I feel so bad. I called my mom a bitch. And it's like, just the once?
Yeah.
This is not quaint. No. This is not quaint. When you're the only mature and rational person in your family.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, you college educated, you hoity-toity, fucking like, uppity person. I'm like, no. I believe in masks. I believe in social distancing. I don't listen to Fox News.
Yeah.
Could you please sit the fuck home?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just stupid. I mean,
this is not black people can get coronavirus. That's the biggest thing. It is all a myth perpetuated by white media. I'm like, oh my god, y'all are crazy.
Oh boy.
Well, did we I mean, I don't even know. Do we need to do?
We're talking about a movie, right?
Do we even need to do first impressions at this point? Because we kind of covered everything.
Well, anyway, I really enjoyed this movie the first time I saw it on Blu-ray after all that business happened that kept me from seeing it in theaters.
Yeah.
And it's very good. Despite all of our digressions, it's a very good movie, and you should see it. So the effects work, the story works, everything is like really tightly paced. Like there isn't time to be bored.
Yeah.
There is one thing that bugs me about it. They tried crawling out through like this trap door. There's like a table on top of it, and I don't think she realized there was. I don't think she realized it was just a table on top of it. But if you shook that door more, I think you probably could have got it to open. Like you could have like gotten the table to fall over.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't know. I mean,
she didn't know what was on top of it though. So I can see. So the stuff in this movie that doesn't quite make sense, you can understand why the characters would do the things that they do, like because they don't have the same knowledge as the audience. But at the same time, and then at the end when she like escapes the death roll, I thought these people should have been a lot more badly hurt. I actually thought they were going to. So this is a thing that annoys me with like modern horror movies is that they'll make it look like people are going to get away, and then they'll kill like one or all of them. And
I was expecting a damn alligator to jump out and grab her.
Yeah, like I
was expecting that too.
Well, I mean, I can predict when a movie is going to do that, and it's a trope that almost always pisses me off.
They came really close in this one. There was one scene. It's the scene where again. Spoiler,
well, it genuinely surprised me that they didn't do it, and I really admire a movie that can surprise me.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, they're gonna kill one of them. They're gonna kill one of them." Whoa, they both lived! Holy crap!
Well, there was that scene where the father
and even a dog
loses his arm, and that's the scene where you see the dog paddling toward him, and you like one of them is going to get it. One of them is going to get it. You know they're not going to kill the dog, So one of them is going to get it. He does lose his arm, but still, it's like that was the scene where it's like they're going to do that, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was what was expected. It was when it was expected, but not what was expected.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing.
It was like the 47 meters. It was like the 47 meters sequel.
Don't tell me what happens in the sequel. Jesus.
I'm saying, hear me out.
All the spoilers.
They kill a major character. No. I'm not saying who. They kill a major character. Like they're not gonna do it. They're gonna do it. Oh fuck! They just did it. Well, okay. That's not the main character right now. I guess we're gonna rely on these other bitches right here.
Well, I think that's the thing. When I heard when the father lost his arm, my first thoughts after seeing this for the second time was that it's only a flesh wound.
That's all right, sir. I've got another.
On that note, I think we should end the discussion.
Yes.
So, we've been going for a while. So see this movie. It's freaking great. Sam Raimi, if you somehow hear this, make more movies like Crawl.
And screenwriters observe this film for structure, and especially young people wanting to get into genre fiction.
And I think
it's a fun ride.
That since the father lost his arm, if they do decide to make a stereo comic version for Crawl 2, he'll probably have a chainsaw hand.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Oh,
or harpoon
fuck's
hand.
Sake, really?
That'd be awesome.
Dave, I'm so sorry for cussing. I'm so sorry, but seriously, Jacob,
curse some more.
Have I ever had a problem with anybody swearing? My God, fuck, shit, damn, freak.
That's
a little unnecessary.
YouTube standards, okay?
Oh yeah, that's right. I forget. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Crap.
For kids.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because this is totally for kids.
Yeah. This has never been for
This
kids.
podcast is not for kids. Do not take it that seriously.
Copa.
Yeah, you have to.
I'm trying to make it a family thing. Yeah.
Up next, we're gonna watch the unrated version of Barney's Great Adventure, in which Barney's a pimp. And he uses a Tommy gun.
And
I think we could do better.
Right after
I think that'd be an awesome movie.
What was the first part you said?
We've just descended into madness now.
Well, that he's a pimp and he uses a Tommy gun. It's basically you make a blaxploitation movie, but with Barney as the star.
There was that weird ass Batman story where they tried to make Killer Croc into a pimp. That was.
That was interesting.
I'm not familiar with that one. And probably for the best.
Guys, I think Dave was trying to say something.
Yeah, sorry. Got sidetracked.
I'm saying something all night.
Well, I've seen people do mock-ups of Elmo as a pimp, so why not Barney?
Elmo's more believable.
Yeah, I want to see that movie. I want to see the Elmo blaxploitation. Basically, do the Mac, but have it star Elmo.
Oh god.
Well,
Dave, Sugar Pie, you got something to say?
Just wanted to say. So, who wants to start with their outros?
I can hold off until next time.
I'll start.
I'm Dustin, also known as the Crypt of Horrors. I'm a horror collector, and I'm looking to start my own horror podcast where we talk about just kind of whatever we're feeling like, but with themes. So especially the biological accuracy of reptiles in horror movies, because that's kind of my thing. And at some point, I am going to have a talk with Graham Webb, a crocodile scientist from Australia, about just kind of what we see in the genre. I don't know when that's going to happen, hopefully sometime this year, because starting my own podcast has been very difficult. But that's something to look forward to. And you would find that on my I will. You would find that on my channel, The Crypt of Horrors on YouTube. I have some more videos coming out with just different things I've been able to collect during the quarantine. And I have an Instagram collection as well. Also, The Crypt of Horrors. And you can find me on Twitter at Cryptaxis, which Cryptaxis is, I guess, my character name now. So, yeah, it's a fun, multi-dimensional thing we're doing.
Sweet.
Well, okay, I'll go next. So I have a YouTube channel. First of all, I am Septum Zen's wife, as I'm known in his little thing. I have my YouTube channel currently by the name of Kim Creates Stuff. I'm building my subscribership on that channel, because everyone likes to see me do Apple product reviews and shit like that. Yeah, we can't afford to constantly have me buy Apple products, so people might be a little disappointed, but I'm trying to give people what they want to see. I'm also on Instagram under Bugs Boom and Twitter under Bugs Boom, BUGSBOOM.
That's a great name.
Nickname. Well, it's based off of two things. One, my lifelong love of Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I actually have a Bugs Bunny that I've had since I was a toddler. It's in our guest room right now, covered in cough syrup and other things. I've been researching a number of times. And the boom part is left over from a nickname from high school of Kimba Boom Boom. So when I was crafting my first AOL nickname in 11th grade in 1997, it was Bugs Boom. So if you look me up on Instagram and Twitter, look up Bugs Boom, and you will find me.
Works for me.
And you might find my old. Actually, you might find my Jacob. You might find my old YouTube channel under Bugs Boom, because I do have that channel under that too as well. Because I do have a previous YouTube channel that I had to retire because it got me in trouble about 12 years ago. My bad. And that's all I gotta say on that.
That's all I gotta say about that.
Alrighty. Dane?
I'm Dane Kyle, aka Dane Damarung, on YouTube. I do a show called Blu-ray Views on a channel called Indie Horror Film Creative, and I do videos like pretty much every day. And there's going to be a lot more cool stuff yet to come, and I'm going to expand into a show called No Money Film School. And hopefully, as soon as this virus calms down, if and when that happens, I'll resume my filmmaking endeavors.
Okay. Satum, you said you were going to talk about yourself in the after show. Yeah. So, and Jake, did you want to do the same?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'll save it for later. I just do the Septum Sim versus the World on YouTube, and got a couple other projects, but I'll wait till the other one for most of it.
Okay, and my name is David Struggy. I am one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore, as well as moonlighting on Delusions of Grandeur. I have some reviews that have come out lately, and some video pickup videos that I share on the channel. But you can catch us in another discussion on creature films, in a discussion about Alligator. On Inside Movies Galore. So catch us in a few. Just don't crawl anywhere
womp,
to get.